All right, it's time for an update to the Spizzichino hi-hat project that I started a few weeks back. I posted a whole video about how I got a set of Spizzichinos in, giant crack in the top hi-hat, and my job was to make a replacement for that cymbal. We'll talk about it, and you guys can let me know what you think. So if you haven't checked out part one, I'll link it in the card above. You can see the original hi-hat as it came in. It was cracked nearly up to the bell. Obviously didn't sound like it used to when it was uncracked, but I did demo that, and I'm gonna show that again in this video. But I wanna talk to you about the hi-hat that I made. So I originally made two full sets to kind of aim in the general vibe of the Spizzichino sound, which is a very specific sound. It's a wonderful sound. He was an amazing maker. He's considered the godfather of independent cymbal smithing, and he is one of my heroes. The one we landed on with the customer is an additional hi-hat that I just made as a one-off. So I made this piece right here specifically to match with the bottom. Now the cracked cymbal was closer to 750 grams, and the original bottom here is 787. So I told the customer, I said I'd prefer to have the weights be actually closer to matching, because I want to be able to approximate a similar sound given that these are old. These are at the bare minimum 15 years old. They might be upwards of 20 or even 25 years old, the original Spizzichinos. And so my newer hi-hats, I wanted to make them a little bit heavier so that that weight would approximate what happens with age in a cymbal. The metal gets more brittle, it gets harder, and typically it becomes a little bit more controlled depending on how much it's played. So the one I made is 776 grams. It's 11 grams thinner than the bottom. And this is nice because now the cymbals can actually be flipped fairly easily to get slightly different tones. I can put this Spizzichino as the top hi-hat and you get a slightly different vibe that you'll hear in a second. Now, as far as the manufacturing process, whenever I'm doing a redux to an older cymbal, I'm usually incorporating some experimental techniques and some extended techniques, if you will, for cymbalsmiths to emulate that age I was talking about earlier. What I do for this is oftentimes it involves burnishing, a process of burnishing, and it usually involves some extra layering processes. The layering processes allows me to keep the outer crust of the metal harder because, say, I take a cymbal blank and I hammer it, then I lathe it. I've lathed away the outer portion of the bronze. The outer portion is the hardest part, and so you end up getting into some softer bronze. When you layer in this manner and when you burnish, you're hardening that outer layer again, or you're helping keep a harder crust on the outside, which, to oversimplify it dramatically, will help with clarity and help with a more brittle feel and a brittle sound, which is very, very common in older cymbals. So with the shape on this cymbal, I went with something that's very, very spiz. It's not going to focus here, but trust me when I say it's got a little bit of a hook out at the edge. It flattens off and then it rises to the bell. This kind of hooked outer edge thing is a great way to add funk and gnarliness and nastiness into the sound of your cymbal. That outer hook tends to allow for there to be a little bit of hums in the middle of the cymbal. It also makes the sustain less smooth and clean, makes it dirtier and more complex. And it also can help with the foot articulation, especially given how thin these hi-hats are. They're very, very thin for 14s. That 700 gram range, match weighted, I mean, that's about as thin as you ever want to go for some hi-hats because you're going to really sacrifice the foot clarity. The drummer who commissioned this project for me really loves thin cymbals and plays in an environment and plays in a way that they're able to use really thin cymbals and get the kind of sound they need to accomplish what they need to accomplish on the gig. Now, as far as the lathing, I did what I consider kind of Spizzichino-esque lathing, where there's quite a bit of crossover in the grooves, and I move faster on my lathe. So I'm going up and down, and the grooves are cutting across each other in a way which also lends itself to complexity. The smoother, the shallower the grooves are, the more even, the smoother the sustain's gonna be. So everything in this project is really about capturing complexity in a way that allows these hi-hats to work functionally on the gig. So enough talk, let's hear how these things sound. I'm gonna play the cymbals with the cymbal I created on top, but then you're also gonna hear it with the Spizzichino on top and mine on the bottom. I'll also add the clip that we had from the original video where you can hear the cracked top and how that sounded. All right, so that's the finale of this Spizzichino project. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Keep an eye out for future videos. I'm really in a phase of my career where I'm doing lots of cymbals inspired by other cymbals. I'm just finding a lot of inspiration with cymbals that exist and designs that were famous, you know, particularly 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. And it's really breathed a lot of life into the work that I'm doing today. You can check out what we do over at reveriedrums.com. But in the meantime, like the video, subscribe and hit the bell if you want notifications, and keep an eye out for the next one. I'm Timothy Roberts. Thanks for watching.